Wait, should we have our cameras on?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Oh,
Let me just check that. We're on live. I'm just gonna. Yeah, all right. Hello, guys. Welcome to Conchordium and OppOrg's final webinar. So this has been Propel, a three-part webinar series based on undergraduate programs, and this final one is based on music. So today we have two amazing speakers. Their names are Dermot and Janet, and they will be speaking about various music undergraduate programs, both abroad and also here in Ontario. So first up, we have Dermot, who is going to speak about jazz studies at UofT, as well as his experience studying at the Berklee College of Music.
all right. Hi, everyone. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly. Share. Perfect. Okay. Alan, is it all right?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So hello, everyone. My name's Dermot. I'm a second-year undergrad student at UofT. I'm currently studying in the Bachelor of Music Jazz Comprehensive program. UofT offers three programs, or within the jazz field, there's jazz education, jazz comprehensive, and jazz performance. Education and comprehensive are relatively new degrees in the stream because the faculty has gotten a little larger in the past couple of years, which I think is a great thing. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about my program and my past experience at Berklee as well. Like I said, I'm at UofT. I'm a tenor saxophonist mainly, and I spent last year at the Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts. So while I was there, I played in the Berklee Symphonic Winds, directed by Dominic Ferreira, and that was a fantastic experience. I did a lot of other stuff there that was really cool, but for my own preferences and purposes, I decided to move to the University of Toronto. I'll get into that in a little bit. Either way, now I'm a full-time student. I'm getting into private teaching, and I gig on the side, and I'm also a student ambassador at U of T, giving tours and working on events like Fall Campus Day, which is a part-time job at the school. So I'm just going to start talking about my journey, I guess, from high school to university. In November 2016, my last year of high school, I was relatively uncertain about what I wanted to do. I applied to 7 different university programs. I got into all of them and decided ultimately on going to Berklee just because of the prestige and other things associated with the school, and it was a fun time. Either way, then January 2017 was, of course, the time where you finalize your university applications, and I made a last-minute decision to apply to Berklee. I think I applied just a couple hours before the deadline, which was January 15th of that year, and then the school holds satellite auditions in Toronto, so they were held in Leslieville, just about 10 minutes from where I live, which is really convenient. Went down there for my audition. Also traveled to Montreal, McGill, for that audition, and then of course the one at the University of Toronto. I got into the comprehensive program at U of T, and that program's equivalent at McGill. I don't recall what that one was called. But of course, I ultimately decided to go to Berklee. They offered a scholarship that helped pad the tuition costs, which I'll get into in a minute. And then in April, I visited Boston, and I met some of the faculty, including Eric Gold, who's the jazz composition director, and he was incredibly interesting to speak to, and I eventually decided after consulting with their admissions office and their scholarships office, that I was able to make it work. So at Berkeley, as an international student, you arrive a little early. I left much earlier than any of my friends going to Canadian universities, and got there, I think, 2 weeks before my classes started. So that was a bit surreal when I left. I expected that I would be getting into classes relatively soon, but it just turned out to be wrapping up other summer work once I got to Boston. When I was at Berkeley, I feel like this is worth mentioning. I met my closest group of friends, who I still call multiple times a week, by showing up to a Mario Kart party on the 6th floor of my dorm hall. And so through that group of friends that I met that night, I formed a big band with my friend Aiden, and I also joined an R&B band led by my friend Laura, where she wrote all the compositions. I wrote and arranged some compositions for the big band, and so that was phenomenal. And it was just because I showed up to play some Mario Kart. I also joined the Berkeley Symphonic Winds, like I said, just by emailing a professor and asking him if I could. So the whole point in this presentation up until this point is just the importance of putting yourself out there when you get to a music program, because it really doesn't hurt. And those three groups were some of the best experiences I had at the school. So after my first semester, I was placed on the dean's list for academic achievement, and I also received a scholarship assignment, which is where Berkeley basically pays you to play in an ensemble. So that was the only legal form of work that you're able to get as an international student studying at a U.S. school. And then I also started working on op-ed writing in my free time. So becoming a Berkeley student, like I said, they hold satellite auditions in Leslieville, and then that makes it a lot easier for you to audition. I absolutely recommend doing this audition process, going through it and seeing what they offer you in March after your audition. If and when you accept their offer, it's kind of a logistical scramble, because the entire summer after accepting, you have to make sure that your visa application and your immigration status is legal, and that is a bit of a headache. And then, of course, finances. Berkeley is a very expensive institution, which I'll get into in a couple slides. And then health insurance. If you're living and studying in the United States, I had to pay several $1,000s for private health insurance, which makes you appreciate having OHIP. And then you also have to figure out all your immunizations. Specifically for Massachusetts, there were some more stricter rules, and I was out of date on 1 or 2 inoculations, which they take several months to adhere. So that is a logistical scramble for some people. And then, of course, housing, travel plans, and then entrance exams. Like I tested out of the first year of ear training, and I'll get into curriculum in a little bit. And so you have to do all of that in a couple short months. And then if you get to Boston or whatever university you're going to, if you're studying abroad, if you get there and you haven't done everything, then you might get sent back. So it's important to figure that out. And that's a good thing to keep in mind if you're applying to Berkeley or a US school. So like I said, legal work opportunities in the US are limited and or non-existent. It's illegal for you to work outside of campus in the United States. And and specifically for musicians, and this is part of the reason I left. This gets a little dangerous when you want to play gigs and other musicians in your band are getting paid and you decide not to get paid. But even if there are photos and videos of you playing in a paid gig, the US government does not appreciate that at all. And the first month or so of my studying there, I was perpetually reminded about that. Anyway, so Berkeley is the largest school in the world to study music at, and it has a contemporary and modern industry focus. It's really phenomenal in certain aspects of their curriculum. It's been taken. It's really advanced, and because there are so many students at Berkeley, there is a great opportunity for them to refine their curriculum and get it, pretty right with their core curriculum, at least harmony and ear training. So, and with a music technology focus, it's really cool to see. I know the University of Toronto doesn't have a focus like that at all, which is a bit of a downer for some people. But for me, it was interesting to have a first-year mandatory course being an introduction to music technology. So all classes are semestered at Berkeley, and they're very small. I don't think I had a class that was larger than 16 people. And some of those were smaller. Some of them had, like 12 people in them. And then it's like when you're selecting your courses, it's kind of like being a kid in a candy store, because there's almost everything you can think of. Saxophone, woodwind, theater labs. There are DJing labs. There are classes you can take on different areas of music tech, Brazilian woodwinds. There is all kinds of stuff that you can pick, and depending on what degree you choose, because Berkeley has 12 degrees, you will have space to take these electives, and it's a fun place to be, and it does offer certain learning experiences that you won't get anywhere else. And then the rating system at Berkeley, it goes from 1 to 8, and this is in reference to your instrumental proficiency, or if you're a vocalist, your performing proficiency. And it's just a scale that basically judges your musical ability and puts you in ensembles that the professors think your skill level is appropriate for. So when I left, I was a rating 3. And it's generally supposed to follow, what semester you're in. If you're a level 3 and you're semester 3, then you're supposed to be in a good place. But okay, so this is just a quick example of my second semester schedule. I'm just going to leave this on the screen for a second so that you can look at it, depending on how many people are watching. The ones in beige, very light beige, are office hours or classes I've decided to sit in on, which some professors are nice about that. You can sit in on their class. However, other professors are not so nice about it. I've had more luck at U of T with this kind of thing, with auditing, quote unquote, classes. So you'll see I have ear training 3 days a week for an hour. And I really love that about their curriculum, where you get constant exposure to ear training and listening classes, which is incredibly helpful. Your lesson time is a little shorter than it would be at the University of Toronto or Humber, which is a bit of a drag. But in my second semester, I was lucky enough to take extra, basically free lessons with my first semester professor, Fred, who was a former arranger of Blood, Sweat, and Tears, which is a band that I don't expect a lot of people to be familiar with, but if you are, then congrats. And then other courses including conducting, tonal harmony and composition, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's classical theory. Intensive introduction to film scoring with a industry film scoring professional was really phenomenal, and I learned a lot from that class. A survey of jazz composition and arranging I took with oh no, I forgot his name. That's unfortunate. He played with Art Blakey and several other of the jazz greats, and he's a really talented bassist. And then arranging one with Gail MacArthur Brown, famous Scottish saxophonist. So it goes on. There are a lot of options you have if you go to that school, and your timetable is more open so that you have more free time to do other personal work. But it also allows for other students to slack off if they're not working, the same amount as you. It can sometimes feel a little unfair. Anyway, so transferring to U of T, I transferred in as a second year jazz comprehensive major, and I went through the entire audition process again. So most of the courses I took at Berkeley qualified for transfer credit, and most notably my first year film scoring class at Berkeley was transferred in as a fourth year film scoring elective at U of T. And so some of the courses that transferred in were peculiar, but for the most part it was smooth. So living back in Toronto and studying here, the jazz program is very small and highly specialized. So there are less than 100 undergraduate students in the jazz program. I think there are approximately 600 in the classical program. That might be an overestimation. But either way, both of those numbers are a lot smaller than the undergraduate population at Berkeley, which is approximately 4,500. But because of the extremely small size, you get a lot of personal attention from your professors and from your private teachers. So every year I get 24 hour-long lessons. I'm studying with John Johnson, who is a recording and performing artist on several saxophones and double instruments. And then as a performance major, you're required to take one large and one small ensemble. I'm lucky as a comprehensive major to be able to perform in the 11 O'Clock Jazz Orchestra, which is a large ensemble. And I also play with a small quintet led by Don Englert. So at U of T, there's a significant emphasis on performance and real life experience. Every year that you're in this program, you will perform at the Rex Hotel multiple times. And you'll also perform on campus at Walter Hall, sometimes at Hart House. So there's a lot. Every year there are several opportunities for you to, go into a live performance environment, and they really try to just throw you in there, even if you don't necessarily feel ready. But it's a bit of a culture shock, or not a culture shock, but it is certainly a surprise, but it is really good for your abilities and just you learn a lot in a very short period of time. All the students and faculty know each other very well. It's a close-knit community. Everybody is on a first-name basis, and that includes your professors who have maybe 30 or 40 years of experience and a PhD and, whatever field that they're teaching. It's a very anti-ego program, and everybody, regardless of skill level, that perceived skill level, is treated with a pretty impressive amount of respect, and I really appreciate it. So, however, academically and musically, the program is very challenging. Sometimes I'll find myself playing my instrument for 7 or 8 hours a day. When I have 2 hours of rehearsal with a large ensemble, and then 2 hours of rehearsal with another large ensemble, and then several hours of practicing on my own between those things. So that can add up, and you do have to watch your time and care for yourself. But it is a great deal of exposure to a lot of hard work. And then also, of course, at UofT, you have access to a ton of school resources, the music library, all of the campus libraries, including Robarts, and then instruments. I've been lucky enough to be able to rent out an oboe, English horn, soprano saxophone, alto saxophone, clarinet, and flute for personal practice. It has to be course related, but there are often ways to find out how to make something course related, and it's a great way to learn other instruments if doubling is an interest of yours. And then the UofT Performance Collection in the UofT Music Library has thousands of scores of music from all around the world. It's the largest collection of music in Canada, and it might be in North America, but I shouldn't say that because I don't know. And then the only criticism I have of this program is that it can lack a contemporary angle. So it's somewhat up to students to find their own way in the music industry. So this is my UofT fall schedule. And you can just look at this. It's all courses. There's nothing beiged in like there was at Berkeley, because there are no, all of your office hours are by appointment. So that can sometimes be, I mean, it's not been an issue for me. I think for some other people it might be frustrating, but it's not hard at all to contact your teacher and ask for some time. Anyway, I've been talking for a long time, so I'm just going to power through this. The differences in programs, I've gone through a lot of this already, but Berkeley is a huge school, and the facilities are state of the art. The recording studios, I had the opportunity to use the Shames family film scoring stage to record my big band, and it was a really fantastic experience. The largest grand piano I've ever seen in my life, and everything is just, it's a beautiful institution. And UofT is small and older and traditional, and there is still asbestos in the ceilings of one of the buildings, and so it's kind of funny, just a change in environments once I transferred. But U of T academically and musically is more challenging, I've found. So the differences mainly in the schools are in the cost, tuition-wise, the curriculum, and then the amount of performing experience you get. So the cost, just to be straightforward, Berkeley's tuition, I believe for 2019 to 2020 is going to be $46,000 something US. It's a pretty egregious amount of money. Whereas the amount of tuition I paid this year for U of T was $9,000 full, I think. So that covers everything for the year. And the tuition I mentioned for Berkeley doesn't cover the food and housing costs that you're also going to have to pay up for. So that can be overwhelming for a lot of students. It's a big reason that a lot of people don't go. However, I do encourage everybody to apply and audition and try your best to get a scholarship. They do have a lot of funding options. They have a massive endowment fund for students that they believe deserve the money. And if you can get a scholarship, and that can support or give you a full ride to the school, then it's absolutely worth it, because it's a very cool place to be. But if that is a prohibitive expense for you, then a program like Humber College or the University of Toronto or McGill or York even, these programs might be, they're absolutely fine. And with specific regards to U of T, I've found it to be a lot more challenging and worthwhile being here. I've had a lot more performing opportunities. So yeah, apply to everything. Apply to every school, apply to every scholarship. I know Berkeley has a composition and arranging scholarship that you can apply to. And then they have merit-based scholarships based on your audition. So make sure you're prepared. I still regret not fully preparing for my audition and maybe getting a little more scholarship money out of the school. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to my presentation. As a bit of shameless self-promotion, I'm performing at the Rex Hotel on Queen Street tomorrow night with the U of T's 11 o'clock Jazz Orchestra. It's free, and we start at 6:30. And if you want to ask me any questions in person, I'll be happy to answer them at about 7:30. Anyway, thank you.
All right. So we have a few questions from the live chat.
Sounds good.
So, the first question is, what kind of extracurriculars would be good when applying to music programs?
With regards to what extracurricular programs that you do in high school that would help you get into a music program,
Yeah, I think that's what.
Yeah, if you're applying and any school in any program that you apply to, regardless of what field it is in, anybody looking at your application is going to appreciate it if you are a community member, if you're involved in your school and something that you enjoy, and if you are making an impact in any way or just doing something for fun. I know specifically at U of T. I knew my adjudicators personally before I even auditioned with them. Mike Murley, Chase Sanborn, Jim Lewis. These guys, if you do their jazz primer program, which by the way, I absolutely suggest anyone applying to U of T you should apply to their jazz primer program. But I knew them already, and I know them very well now, and I don't think that they really appreciate a superficial approach to extracurriculars. Of course, they're going to look at any ensembles that you play in, any performing experience that you have. If your jazz ensembles at school perform in Music Fest, or if you do any show choir, like pit band experience. Like my high school traveled down to Massachusetts and did the Bay State Show Choir Festival and the New England Show Choir Showdown and other things like that. So any performing experiences, if you're applying to a music school, at least for a performance or a related degree, is going to be helpful. Other than that, they're also going to be interested in breadth. So if you're part of Model United Nations or DECA or really anything, if you're involved in your school's community, that will always look good on your application. But I wouldn't necessarily suggest any particular clubs. You have a great opportunity in 12th grade to do everything and make yourself look as great as possible. And so my suggestion is, if you have any free time, you're doing something wrong.
All right, great. The second question is, so this person was late. So their question was, why did you transfer to UofT? And I know that you mentioned this in your presentation, but can you just briefly summarize why you transferred to UofT instead of staying at Berkeley?
Yeah, so cost was an issue to me. I did not feel comfortable taking on debt to attend a music school. I know a lot of my friends at Berkeley are taking on debt, and that is part of a larger political crisis of student loan debt in the United States that I had absolutely zero interest getting myself involved in. So that was an issue to me. And also employment opportunities after you graduate from Berkeley, you have 1 year on an artist visa to work and play in the United States. And then after that, you have to apply to the government to get a extension on that visa. And you have to put together a portfolio. And so if you're not careful and you fail to put together that portfolio well enough and you fail to get a visa, then you'll get kicked out of the country and you'll be back in a country where you've been out of the music scene for at least 4 years. And that is not, that's not particularly helpful to you And I knew it wouldn't be to me, and I also knew that U of T's program was phenomenal, and that I would be doing a lot more performing at U of T, which is why I transferred. So,
All right, and all right. Between Berkeley and U of T, which do you think provides you more opportunities and connections?
It depends on what you're looking at. I mean, Berkeley is full of students from all over the world. I had the opportunity to work with Fernando Brando and other people. Fernando is a Brazilian flautist, and so I worked in his Brazilian jazz ensemble, and I met other students who were interested in that. And Berkeley, just because of its sheer size, has a lot of students where I asked my professor in ear training if he had any trombonists in any of his other classes, and he did. So I left him my phone number. He gave my phone number to the trombonist in his other class, and then that trombonist contacted me, and then he ended up joining my big band. So Berkeley gives you, there are more people to connect with at Berkeley. The only thing is, it's a matter of weighing your personal interests and your personal skill with the program. So personally at U of T, there are a lot of phenomenal people here as well. And there are also great faculty members that act as great connections, like Ernesto Serini. And so it's just really a matter of you being dynamic and taking a, I mean, I don't want to say it, but like a tactical approach to your education, and making sure that you're thinking about connections all the time. If you go to Berkeley on a full scholarship ride, for example, if cost isn't a factor, Berkeley may offer you more connections, especially if you're a really phenomenal student. If you can rise to the top of a school like Berkeley, personally, I could not. My skill level is not at that level. But some students absolutely thrive by being immersed in an environment like that. So it's really up to your abilities and your approach.
All right, last question. What are the employment prospects for this program, and what have previous graduates gone on to do? So I guess you could talk about both UofT and Berkeley if you want.
Yeah, so Berkeley, at Berkeley, there's a pretty big emphasis on a music business, and I remember walking through the Stan Getz library at Berkeley and seeing an LSAT prep book. So a lot of musicians, and this is applying to both schools, go into law and other things, and that's something that I'm personally thinking of doing. The Faculty of Music at U of T is located literally right beside the law faculty, and they're at U of T. I'm taking a first-year course called Lives in Music that is specifically designed to teach students what options they have in a music career. And so if you go to U of T, this is a course you'll be taking, whether you'll be in the jazz or classical program. So they cover things like music administration, law. Of course, there's performance and composing and arranging and all these things. A lot of the jazz students go immediately into performing roles just because it's smaller, and there are a lot of smaller level gigs for jazz players. But it's complicated in music. The only thing I would say is that is something you have to consider pretty constantly when you're in this major, and it's also just something that you have to think ahead for and prepare yourself for. You have to create your own employment avenue, and it's not there's nothing that's going to be prepared for you.
All right, that's all the questions we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I'm off to rehearsal.
Yeah, all right. Thank you. All right, so next we have our next speaker, which is Janet, and she is in Music Business Administration at Western University. All right, take it away.
Let me share my screen. Um, Let me know if this is good. So just to kind of go over about what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, what school I go to, so a little bit about the university life, my program description, what I needed to do to get in, and why you should choose music at my school. So again, my name is Janet, and I am currently first year at the University of Western Ontario, also known as Western University. On my free time, I like to participate in gigs for coffee houses around campus, volunteer for the radio station at my school, and help run events for my music council. So Western is located about a 2-hour drive southwest of Toronto, and with 36,000 students, you're bound to find your group of friends and find a club you're interested in, since Western is the #1 student satisfaction in Canada. Another thing people associate with Western is our O Week. It's a week-long roller coaster of activities that upper years, also known as softs, plan for incoming first years. You get everything from a carnival to concerts, to raves to workshops. So I'm sure if you come to Western, you would find your group of friends and you would have a great time during O Week. So the program that I am in is called Music Administrative Studies, also known as MAS. It is a 4-year bachelor program, meaning that when you graduate, you would get a Bachelor of Arts with a specialization in Music Administrative Studies. There is an option for you in 3rd year to do a double degree with Fanshawe College, which is an affiliate college, to do a music recording degree, meaning that you'd attend additional classes to further specialize your knowledge in the recording arts, if that's something you're interested in. MAS is the only program of its kind in Canada, as it is jointly and exclusively offered by the Donright Faculty of Music and Faculty of Social Science. Doing this program would prepare you for the music industry fields, which can include music marketing, music recording, talent managing, music publishing, and many more that I can't think of off the top of my head. So another way to describe the program is it's kind of a double major in music and business, meaning that your schedule would be a mix of business courses, which include econ, math, stats, accounting, finance, marketing, operations, and music courses, which include history, theory, popular music studies, even music recording in a studio. But those courses you would be able to take when you're upper year. The good thing about Western is that I know some unis don't let you do is that they let you make your own schedule, because I know some people like myself aren't really morning birds. So personally for me, I like to schedule my own classes towards the noon or afternoon, so I know I'm more motivated to go to class. And the thing about MAS is that it lets you focus on 2 fields of study, so business and music, so that you don't drown in one subject. And personally for me, that's a better thing, because I know for myself, if I were to focus on one subject, I wouldn't be able to focus on other things I like, for example, music, if I just studied business, for example. And of course, just because you aren't required to play an instrument at Western doesn't mean you can stop. I know other people in my program who run their own band on their free time, join an orchestra, or even a jazz band. And like I mentioned earlier, I continue to perform through coffee houses and other small events throughout the campus. So in terms of applying to Mass, your high school credits need to include 6 grade 12 U or M courses, including English, and one of the following maths listed on the screen. And for me, I took data management because I know that eventually I would have to take a management course in university. So taking data management in grade 12 would help me in the long term. So obviously you'd have to apply through the OUAC, and after that you have to do the rest of your application through the student profile that they give you. And this application includes a questionnaire asking you about some future goals, 2 letter of recommendations or references, a theory placement test, an in-person interview, and a recorded audition. And in my experience, I played tenor sax for my recorded audition and had 2 of my music teachers be my references just because they knew my musical levels the best. So if you are applying to this program, you should maybe choose a teacher and or someone who watched over you as you volunteered, as they are the people who know you best. So why should you choose music at Western? At Western, we have a small, tight-knit community, which means that you know everyone and everybody knows you, including your professors and your TAs. This year, it's considered a big year in terms of our faculty. We have about 152 first years in the faculty of music, and that is considered small, but it's considered big within the faculties. So everybody knows each other, and you can always reach out to one another and give each other support, especially when you're doing theory homework and history work. At Western, there's also many opportunities to showcase your talent. If you love to perform, if you love to just kind of put yourself out there. There's so many things that you can get involved with. So for example, there is a Western Voice, which is geared towards singers, for example, and it's kind of structured the same as the TV show The Voice. And there's other things like Western's Got Talent, Battles of the Bands, which you can audition for even if you're not in music. So you would be able to connect yourself with other students across London and even potentially people outside of London. We even have coffee houses that that other clubs and councils host for us, which you and other students can potentially participate in. And there are also gigs around London. London is a big city, so there will be there for sure will be many opportunities for you to kind of showcase your talent. And just some other facts about Western or things that you can do at Western is that you can join the Faculty of Music Students Council, also known as FOMSC, and I decided to kind of be more initiated in what I do in terms of co-curricular activities, so I decided to join FOMSC as the internet commissioner. And on top of that, like you would be able to plan things like tuba holidays and our semi-cash, which is happening soon. And on top of FOMSC, you would be invited to fan jams, which are short for 3 faculties combined to do a small coffee house throughout the year. So it would include the films department, the arts and humanities department, and the music department. And just another thing to mention that I thought I would throw out there is that music and the faculty of music at Western and the faculty of engineering at Western are so close-knit just because we have similar work levels. I know for my specific program, we don't have that many hours of rehearsal in comparison to, say, a performance major or an music ed major, just because we're not required to play instruments. But engineering did make us a 6-feet spoon made out of small spoons, and they have a 6-feet fork made out of forks for themselves. And there are some Q&As that I personally asked to myself, and I'm not too sure if anyone else has the same questions, but that's kind of all that I have. If you have any questions, you can choose to contact me at this email or my Facebook. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this presentation.
All right. Could you potentially answer those questions that you had now that you've been on the other side? So
yeah, for sure.
People, if they have those questions, they could have those answered too.
Okay. So the first question is, I want to study music, but my parents do not approve. What should I do? And to follow that, to answer that question, I think you should just apply for what you like to do and follow your dreams, because in the long run, you would be able to study what you like, and if you are genuinely good at something, and if you genuinely love something, you will make it far in that field. Another question that I asked myself was, what kind of careers can you go into from music? So in music, I know, aside from my specific program, since I mentioned earlier that my specific program would kind of lead me towards the music production industry or marketing, or kind of like the looking for talent kind of showbiz. There's the general music for music education and music performance or music composition. So within music composition, as the name states, like, you would be making your own music, you would be selling it, and you could potentially work with other ensembles and even schools to do commissions, and just you can write your own music from then on. For music education, that's more leaning towards becoming a teacher for a public school, for a university, or even if you just want to be a private teacher, music education would be what you want to lean towards. And the third one is music performance, which is lean more toward for more if you want to pursue just performance for a while, because you would get the opportunity to join many ensembles, as you do with other programs in the music faculty. And if you can connect well with others, then you can eventually extend your network to other orchestras or bands, or maybe even start your own band in the future. The third question that I asked myself was that I never really learned music outside of school. Will I do okay in music in university? And as long as you do your best and study hard in high school for music, because if you have an interest for music, hopefully that stems from being in some kind of ensemble at school or choir. And like I said earlier, Western provides a first-year course of music theory and music history. So they teach you from the very basics of music, so that everyone would be on the same page once you kind of work your way up in the years. And that's also the reason why Western makes you do a theory placement test as part of your application. It's for them to determine what your level of knowledge in terms of theory is, so that they can better provide support for students and for other incoming students. Another question I asked was, I'm worried about if I will do well in university. What resources does Western have for me to access? And I know personally, because I didn't come from a musically inclined background, I struggled a lot with music theory at the beginning. So one resource that helped me especially was peer guides, and peer guides are a group of upper year students who are in your program and have gone through the same courses that you have, and their objective is to just kind of be your mentor and tutor in terms of homework. So they would set up homework help sessions where you're free to attend with your friends so that you can finish weekly assignments, or if you just have any questions about your program, you can ask them because that's kind of what they're there for. And the last question that actually someone asked me was how the program is going so far for me. And in my opinion, I really like it. I like how diverse the Music Administrative Studies program is, just because I like to have variety in what I study. I know that if I were just to focus on music, I would not be able to wrap my head around it. So I decided to pursue something with another subject that I love, which was business. So that's why I thought math was perfect for me. And yeah, the first semester is almost done, and I know my exams are also coming up, but nothing is too bad for me just because I can manage my time well. I put myself around good people, and can I go to peer guides and work on my homework and all that stuff. So yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you. So other people have some other questions. So what kind of graduate studies would you go into after your undergrad in music administration?
In terms of music administration, I don't really know if there is a specific music and continuation for music administration, but I know you can, if you want to go more specifically into the music field after finishing your undergrad, you can do a master's in music and possibly be a music professor in the future, or if you want to keep performing or do other amazing things in the music industry in the future as well.
All right, great. So someone else is asking, does the theory placement test affect your chance of getting in?
I thought it did with me, just because I know that my knowledge wasn't too good. But they don't even tell your out like they don't even tell your mark to you. It's just a way for them to know so that they can further help you. And if I got in just because I didn't do too well on the theory placement test, it's not a deciding factor for them to accept you or not. It's just a way for them to say, oh, this person still has a passion for music, but they don't come from a background where they can learn music or learn theory. So that's why they offer first year courses that start from the very beginning, even though many other students would have, say, for example, harmony or rudiments already learned for them.
All right. I know you touched upon this in your presentation, but just to briefly summarize, where do people in music business administration often go after university? Or in other words, what are the employment prospects for this program, and what have previous graduates gone on to do?
I know in the past, because our program is not too demanding in terms of workload, on our free time, on your free time, you would look for management opportunities. So it doesn't even have to be related to music, as long as you can put yourself out there in terms of planning events, anything related in terms of marketing, or just even music, doing gigs or planning events. Like you can land, if you can land a good internship, or if you can do relevant volunteer opportunities or even extracurriculars at Western. If you can do something like that, then you can end up somewhere in the music production industry.
All right. So the general questions that have been asked prior to this webinar. I'm in grade 9, so do you have any recommendations of what I can do casually during the next few years to help determine a direction and credentials for my academics and career?
If you have no idea what you want to do, I'd say kind of just take everything there is. From my personal experience, I didn't know that I wanted to go into this program literally until the last day that we were allowed to accept our offers. So in grade 12, I took a variety of courses, but it doesn't have to be in grade 12. You can even start in grade 9. You can start taking a business course if you're interested in like global environments or economics, or if you want to go into kind of like this medical science field, you can take a food and nutrition course, or you can even take a kinesiology course. My advice in this situation would be to just try everything and anything there is, because if you don't try it, you can't say for sure whether or not you would like that path or that field that you want to study in. So
all right, the next question is, what is the best way to learn outside your classes about your potential career paths? For example, internships, joining a design team, club, etc.
yeah, so like you asked, there was you can do internships. One really good way that would take up a lot of your time, so time management is important, is to volunteer. One thing that I did in high school that kind of showed me that I really wanted to go into the music/business field was volunteering for a music festival, and that kind of made me go through all the logistics and kind of just work around everything and anything there was in terms of planning, and that's kind of what helped me decide what I wanted to do.
All right, the next question is, what do universities mean by awards and distinctions, and what are some good examples?
Sorry, words and distinctions?
Sorry, awards and distinctions.
Oh, okay, awards and distinctions. Are you asking for like how you can get awards and distinctions, or?
I think this question is more dealing with how would you for example, what counts as an award or distinction on a university application? Like, for example, does a DECA award count as something or not?
Oh,
or an honor roll?
okay. I think
What can you put on there?
right. On your awards and distinctions, I think again, you should leave on anything that's significant to the university, or just anything that you're passionate about. So say you won a DECA award and you're going into business, you should for sure leave that on there to kind of prove that you put yourself out there in the business field already, and that you're passionate about what you want to study, so that the university knows. And even smaller things like if you were placed on the honor roll, that just shows that you're kind of committed to the work that you do and the things that you study. So anything that you feel significant to the university, you should definitely add on.
All right. What do you wish you knew before going into university?
I think that I wish that I knew how to socialize better. I'm not that much of an extrovert, but after coming here, I kind of realized how important networking can be, just because university is such a big place, no matter where you go, and it can be super overwhelming, especially if you're moving out to a new area, like I did. So putting yourself out there is incredibly difficult, but it's incredibly rewarding just because you get to meet so many people in so many different fields, and you kind of like mix and match passions and topics that you would talk about or even go out about. So.
All right. The next question is, what extracurriculars and volunteer activities did you participate in high school, and how do they compare to what you're doing now at university?
In high school, I wasn't really involved with my school in terms of what I did until grade 11, where I started to join councils and just smaller clubs to kind of help myself realize what I want to do in university. So that included joining the student council, and that although yes, it's not directly related to business or music, it did help me realize that I really like planning things, for example. And if I know that I really like planning things, then I kind of figured out that I wanted to go somewhere within the business industry so that I can possibly pursue something further in marketing, so that I can kind of like continue to plan things for people and continue to see a final product for things.
All right. So this is the second last question. With everyone starting their own youth organizations in high school, do you think the value of youth organizations has diminished in the eyes of universities? And do you think starting one is becoming less of a standout activity and more of a necessity for high-tier programs, or for any program in general?
No matter what you think it is becoming, I personally think that it's still important if you have something you're passionate about or something or a cause that you want to stand for. If you can start a youth organization to kind of support that cause or belief, you should do it, just because universities don't, I don't think universities would look at, oh, it's just another youth organization. They kind of look for students that are putting themselves out there by starting something that they believe in and something that they're passionate about. And they want to know that if who they're accepting is able to make a change within the community of their university and for themselves and for the people around them. So no, if you want to start something for yourself, for a group of people, and you think it's going to benefit yourself, it's going to benefit the community, and potentially the future, if it can change something for the good, I'd say go for it. And kind of a line that a lot of my friends would tell me is either full send or no send. You can't half send anything. So if there's something you want to do it.
All right, thank you. And the last question is the RCM 8 level requirement for any instrument a hard requirement? How hard is it to meet that requirement? And if you're less skilled but still have potential, will they overlook the fact that you may not be at the level that is required for the application?
For sure. For me, I didn't have the official RCM 8 certification for the tenor sax when I auditioned. And they're not expecting you to have, standard bass level 8. They just want to see if you can reach up to that level, or if you can push yourself up to that level based off of where you come from. And what I did was I didn't go out to get my certification before I auditioned, because I wouldn't have time, and I wouldn't have, I just didn't have the time to get the official certification. But I did choose a piece out of the level 8 book, and I hired an accompanist, and we just practiced it and recorded part of it. In terms of mass, just because a recorded audition at the RCM 8 level is only required for my program, they aren't looking for a for strictly RCM 8, they are looking to see if you have some kind of musical background. Like I mentioned earlier, mass is not required to play an instrument. So even if you did do exceptionally well on your recorded audition, that wouldn't make a difference to if you were, say, not as exceptionally well. They just want to know that you have a commitment to music and you have a background in music, just because the required courses for mass are music theory and music history. So they don't want to, accept you and then you're not doing so well. They want to know that you are committed to studying this field, and they want to know that you're willing to reach out when you need the extra help.
All right, that's great. Thank you, Janet.
Cool.
All right, so this concludes OppOrg and Propel's 3-part series webinars on university admissions. So thank you very much for everyone who decided to tune in over the 3 days. And we hope that you guys have luck with all of your university admissions. And if you want, you could ask any of the 8 speakers who have been featured over the past 3 days. So that includes Mehak, Angelina, Nick, Zamila, Nikhil, Jenny, Emily, Dermot, and Janet. And you can find out more information on both Conchordium and OppOrg's social medias, and you can also contact them directly. All right, thank you.